Right. I never had a day job. I went from college into the Army, and when I got out of the Army, I was running games by mail. While I was in the Army, I had invented a game that could be played by mail, and I was running it for people to try it out, just for fun. And by the time I got out of the Army, I had 200 people playing my game. So I thought, well, maybe I can make a business out of this. So I got out of the Army and went back to college on the GI Bill. So I was getting a check from the Army every month and running my play-by-mail game from my grandparents' house. And gradually it grew from there, and I started doing more and more play-by-mail until I had 1,000 customers. And I was always inventing games and designing games and playing games, so I invented a few. I wanted to go to game conventions like Origins to promote my play-by-mail game, but I needed to have something to sell to pay my expenses. So I started creating various board games in order to have something to sell at conventions.
Right. Now clearly conventions have changed dramatically. When did Essen start? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know. I've been coming to Essen since 1995, and I don't know how long it was going before that. It was already really big by then.
Yeah. And I've noticed, I've started going to conventions a lot. It becomes what I call convention blur. I don't, how many do you go to a year, and does it all sort of blur together?
They all blur together. I go to Origins every year, Gen Con every year, Kubla Con, DundraCon, Strategicon, Gamma Trade Show, Essen, and there's always a few others that I go to in between.
Right.
So sometimes I go to as many as a dozen conventions a year.
Are you still designing games, or are you just managing your company?
Well, I'm mostly managing the company, but I've still got some game ideas that I want to produce.
Excellent. Do you want to share any with us? Just hints.
Well, I want to do a card game using Grimtooth and the traps. Kind of like the Dungeoneer card game that Atlas Games has, but different, of course.
How are you working on that game? In terms of, do you write things in a notebook? Are you sketching things? Or?
Mostly I just keep them in my mind. I keep coming up with ideas. I make notes on my computer sometimes.
Yeah. Do you have a group of people you'll play test with?
Not really.
Will you play test, or will you just
I'll play test it.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm going to come up with a deck, a trial deck, beta deck, and we'll play it around in our group at home, and then I'll probably get some people, some of my fans, to try it out.
You'll send them copies via email?
Email or mail it to them.
Were you also doing some of the early internet-based games?
Well, you know those massively multiplayer games that are making millions of dollars and have millions of players?
Yes.
That was exactly what I had in mind when I started doing play-by-mail in 1970. Okay, but in 1970 there was no internet. I had to use postal mail. I was the first person in the entire world to buy a computer just to play games on. My original idea for play-by-mail was lots of players, hidden movement, simultaneous movement, where a computer keeps track of everything for you. That was my idea. But back in 1970 there was no internet, and so everything had to be sent back and forth by postal mail. I ended up with thousands of customers, and I still have a lot of customers that play, but you know, these massively multiplayer games got way past me. Problem is, I bought my computer in 1972, and it cost me $38,000, and it took me 6 years to pay it off. And so when those cheap small computers came out and people started programming them, I was still paying off my expensive computer.
Which was that computer?
It was a Raytheon 704 mini computer. It had 4K of memory. core memory. And when I expanded it to 8K of memory, it cost me $4,000.
And what type of monitor system did it use?
We had a teletypewriter. It typed out the results on paper. We had a yellow roll of canary yellow paper in the teletypewriter, and the results for the players was typed out 10 characters per second by this typewriter thing.
And how did you program this?
I had a friend who programmed it in assembly language. Most people don't even know what that is, but he programmed in assembly language. You had to if you only had 4K of memory.
And did you feed it punch cards or
paper tape? Everything, all the programs were on paper tape, and the results of the game were on paper tape. So we had a paper tape for each game that was being played. And in order to run the next turn of the game, we had to feed last turn's paper tape into the machine, and then put the program tape on the machine. It would read the part of the tape in, do some processing, then read some more of the tape in. We would type in the new orders, then it would read more of the tape in, and then it would print out the results, and it would read more of the tape in, and then it would punch out the tape for next turn. Well, when we first got a disk drive, it was the most marvelous thing. We didn't have to use paper tape anymore.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the name of the floppy disk was, but it was a huge step up.
Clearly you still love what you do.
Yes, I do. As I've said to my friends, I've never worked a day in my life. You know, I've got a job that's a lot of fun, and I enjoy everything I do.